When the Pittsburgh Steelers are winning, according to the national media, ESPN, the only reason why they're winning is because of every decision that Mike Tomlin makes. And then 3 weeks later, when he's on a 3-game losing streak, the same ESPN and Ryan Clark and the rest of the clown show there will claim that Mike Tomlin has nothing to do with the losing that the Steelers are suffering, that it's everyone else's fault, that it's the GM's fault, that it's Rooney's fault, that it's Omar Khan's fault, that it's everybody else but Mike Tomlin's fault. Now, that's the national media trying to, make every household in America believe that narrative. It's a total lie. The Pittsburgh media gets it. Anybody that follows the team closely gets it. But that narrative is always pushed by woke ESPN. You can't have it both ways. When things are going good, you can't say, well, it's all because of Tomlin. And then 3 weeks later, when things are going wrong, oh, Mike Tomlin needs to go to Chicago where he'll be more appreciated and he'll have a franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams. And the Steelers haven't done enough for Mike Tomlin to win. They don't give him what he needs, etc., etc. Meanwhile, Mike Tomlin is in total control of the entire organization. ESPN tries to make it sound like that Mike Tomlin is powerless inside the Steelers organization. It's comical, disgraceful as a journalist. Now, I don't know if somebody's telling them to lie or they're just lying, period. I'm sure it's a little bit of both. There was an amazing article written in Steelers Depot today by Matthew Marzi. Let's jump into the article. Mike Tomlin at fault for Steelers' personal woes. Pryor argues he creates a problem and then he solves it. It's 1,000% accurate since he's the one drafting all the players. The Steelers could slap co-general manager to the end of Mike Tomlin's title and nothing would be amiss. As much as perhaps any head coach in the NFL, he plays a fundamental role in the Steelers' roster building process. If a player is on the 53-man roster, you can be pretty confident Tomlin wants to have him there. Even former Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger said as much. It might not always work out, and perhaps at times he relents and lets himself be outweighed by other powers that be. But on the whole, when the Steelers take the field, they are a team of Tomlin-approved players, which to Brooke Pryor makes the annual praise of his ability to do more with less so fascinating. Appearing on the Dave Dameshek show to discuss the state of the Steelers, ESPN's beat writer for the team didn't pull punches in diagnosing what ails the organization. Pryor said that Tomlin is too comfortable, as is the organization as a whole, and she compared Tomlin to a contestant on the cooking show Chopped, complete with mystery ingredients. It's a great analogy. He does a great job. The thing is, it's not a mystery basket. He is the one that's going grocery shopping, she argued. It feels like this in Mike Tomlin's show. In a lot of ways, he creates the problem and then he solves it. And then he gets credit for solving it without a lot of acknowledgement that, well, you're in this problem because you had a hand in it. The Steelers go on record virtually every year to discuss how their decision-making process works. Even former Steelers head coach Bill Cowher talked about it over a decade ago. Mike Tomlin is as instrumentally involved in the personnel decisions as President Art Rooney II and GM Omar Khan. Generally speaking, they work to form a consensus on players, but it can't always work so perfectly. Yet, is a team that has basically given Tomlin a lifetime appointment going to try to make him coach players he doesn't want? I don't think so. Pryor argued that Tomlin's almost what feels like unchecked power is at the root of many of the Steelers' issues. She continued in saying that his power feels even more unchecked since former GM Kevin Colbert retired. Current GM Omar Khan doesn't have nearly the personnel background, though the Steelers did add assistant GM Andy Weidel. One thing the Steelers certainly do not do is put together a roster without a thought as to what Mike Tomlin wants. After all, you'd be hard-pressed to find a player they sign who doesn't have a personal Tomlin story. Tomlin is one of the main draws for players to come here, and he is also the one who believes he can get the best out of everybody. But often, he can't. So when it comes to praising Mike Tomlin for doing more with less, remember who gave himself less. He has as much to do with the Steelers' roster weaknesses as anybody else does. If he lacks a roster which to win division titles and playoff games, that's because he made evaluation mistakes. I mean, what she said is spot on. It doesn't get any more truthful and honest than this. I mean, she said this during an interview. I know this article is being rewritten, but this article is a fantastic article because it's 1,000% the truth. You know, this whole ESPN narrative that Mike Tomlin is doing more than with less, and the Rooneys, they don't do enough for Tomlin to win. They gave him total control of the organization. There's no doubt in my mind that Mike Tomlin has the final decision on personnel. Who's coming, who's going, who's going to start. I don't believe for a minute that Art Rooney or Omar Khan override anything that Mike Tomlin wants. At all. Ever. And let me ask you something. Besides money, why do players want to go to certain places in 2025? See, today's players are a lot different. It's not just about winning championships. Yeah, you're always going to have those old throwback players where it's all about winning. There are plenty of guys in the NFL who don't care about winning. They care about money, they care about the lifestyle, and they care about if they go somewhere, where are they going to be the most comfortable? You're not going to be the most comfortable in New England playing for Belichick, I can tell you that. If you don't do your assignment, if you're not giving 100%, if you're not putting the team first, your life is going to be hell in New England. There's almost this feeling and vibe that when you go to the Steelers, it's a vacation. That accountability is not at the forefront. I mean, we've all heard the rumor about the locker room this year. With George Pickens was showing up late for practice, to games, that all the internal strife between the players, that players were getting mad, calling him out, and Tomlin still wasn't disciplining him. I don't care that Tomlin calls him into the office and has a talk. That's not discipline. That's not this at all. And what does Tomlin do? Maybe not this year, last year against Buffalo. They give George Pickens the game ball because he had a block the whole game and didn't get a lot of receptions. And he did it without complaining. So Tomlin hands him a game ball. I mean, you might as well. It's like telling the class clown / bully / problem maker, you know what? When you come into my classroom, you're in control. Do whatever the hell you want. And by the way, I'll buy you lunch at lunchtime. That's what Tomlin did. So you have to ask yourself, why is Pittsburgh so attractive to so many of the players around the league? The real reason. Again, not every player. Some players love the culture there, the history of the Steelers. If they're on defense, they want to be part of that history. Not every guy is like that. But let's just say 4 out of every 7 players or 3 out of every 7 players wants to go to Pittsburgh because they're comfortable. That's too many. I'm not saying you have to come to work trembling in fear every day, but you saw it on Hard Knocks with the Patriots when Tom Brady would do something wrong. Bill Belichick was all over him. At that point, he already won 5 Super Bowls. Everybody got held to the highest standard and accountability. When you don't have accountability in a team or in a business or anywhere, and certain rules only apply to certain people, morale goes to below sub-zero, and it's a horrible place to work. Horrible. Now, the guys that don't care, that just want to check and they just want to be comfortable, they could care less. But for guys that are trying to leave a legacy and win Super Bowls, it's hell on earth. Nothing brings morale down faster than lack of integrity in a team, in a business, you name it. It brings the morale to below zero. Fast. And I think you've seen some of that in the Ravens game, where it's one thing to lose, but you're losing because you don't want to be physical. You don't want to put it on the line and smash Derrick Henry. You're letting him run for 200 yards. I mean, we've all seen the film. You really think it was gap assignment issues? Looked like a bunch of guys on defense to me that didn't want to hit. And why would they act like that? Me personally, Patrick Queen, who got all that money, maybe he just knows, you know what? I'm not going to be held accountable. In a week or two from now, nobody will care. I got my money. I'm comfortable here in Pittsburgh. No big deal. If you got 3 or 4 players like that on defense, you're in trouble. I mean, Cam Hayward and TJ Watt and Minka, they can't take on an entire offense. Yeah, when things are going right, Tomlin should get credit. But when things are going wrong and the ship is sinking, the media can't throw up their hands for Tomlin and say, you know what? Tomlin has nothing to do with it. It's the Rooney's fault. It's the GM's fault. Doesn't work like that. All of this comes back to Tomlin. He's in charge of the draft. He's in charge of the coaching staff. He's in charge who's going to play and who's not going to play. And Mike Tomlin made the decision in 2024 to go into the season with Russell Wilson as a starting quarterback. A 36-year-old quarterback whose legs are shot, whose arms are shot, who can't throw the ball over the middle of the field anymore. And Mike Tomlin, it's all about winning Super Bowls in Pittsburgh. It's not about being 10-8. If you go 10-8, you didn't do a good job. That's 500. That's horrible. It's not like 13-4, 14-3, then you did a good job. 10-8, 10-7, whatever, doesn't matter. You get the point. You lose over 4 or 5 games, you didn't do a good job. So Mike Tomlin goes into last year, thinking that Russell Wilson is going to outperform Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes to win the Super Bowl. That's his logic. Remember, it's not about making the playoffs. It's not about being over 500. It's about winning Super Bowls. They had no chance to win a Super Bowl with Russell Wilson. 0. And if he gets resigned and Tomlin signs off on that and the season fizzles out in 2025 as it did in 2024, Mike Tomlin needs to be fired. You cannot go into this season with Russell Wilson as your starting quarterback. Justin Fields, just based off of age alone, being a young, strong guy that can take off with the football, that can throw the ball 70 yards downfield, who won his first 4 games, you could feel it. You could feel it in the team. You could feel it in the stadium. That when Justin Fields plays, you know with that much upside and potential, you always got a shot. You're not going to get stymied like the Steelers did the last 5 games. The Pittsburgh Steelers, in a half of football, were having 40 total yards and 1 or 2 first downs. Someone needs to tell Russ it's over. And even when the ship was sinking, Mike Tomlin, he still didn't turn to Justin Fields and say, all right, get in. Let's see what you could do. Nope. The ship just sank, and say goodbye to the season. It all falls back to Tomlin.